name is Isabella, and welcome to my channel, Between the Pages. Today, I'm drinking a pink slush Alani, but I haven't tried it, I don't think. I may have tried it before, like a year ago. I guess we'll see. It has strawberries on the front of it, so I'm assuming it's just a strawberry slush flavor. That smells odd. No, I think I have tried this one. Not bad, not my favorite. Today, I'm going to be crocheting while I talk about this, because this project, I got to row 36. There's 36, or the size I'm making 36 rows, and there's 12 separate sections. And I literally got to row 36 in the last section, and I lost yarn chicken, which is, I guess, what people call it when you run out of yarn. I ran out of yarn. But the problem was that partway through, like, the edges were curling like it's doing now. I noticed it and I was like, oh, well, if I change my hook size up and I try to crochet looser, maybe it'll help. It didn't help. And so I continued with, I think, 1 or 2 sizes up in hook size. So I restarted. I went back down to where I thought I had switched the hook size, went back down. I'm keeping my tension even, and I should have enough yarn because it was literally one section that was missing. Anyways, enough about that. I know y'all don't care unless y'all like to crochet, but I like it when I'm watching YouTube videos and they give little bits about this, what they're drinking and what they're crocheting or whatever, you know. So I'm gonna do it, and I like to yap. So anyways, okay, it is actually like 3 days later because I got as far as the intro and then there was a lot of commotion and background noise. So the drink has actually changed to a Strawberry Dreams Monster. Still crocheting. Have not had time over the weekend to film or crochet. So here we are, Monday morning, but it's all right. Man, oh, that tastes so good. Love it. Anyways, today is the plot of The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. This is the first book chronologically and the 6th book in publication order of The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. Now, in the beginning of this book, we meet one of our 2 main characters, Diggory Kirk. He is from the countryside in England, UK, whatever, but his mother is very sick, like on her deathbed, and his father works away. So Diggory and his mother go and live with Diggory's aunt and uncle in London. And little backstory about his uncle. Diggory's uncle is odd. He stays to himself in his study most of the time, and anytime he tries to talk to Diggory, his aunt is like, oh, hush, Andrew, nobody cares. And Diggory is not allowed in his uncle's study, and I think sometimes he hears weird noises coming from the study. One day, Diggory's playing in the garden, and he meets a little girl that lives in the house beside him named Polly. They become fast friends, and they go on all sorts of adventures together. One day, Polly takes him to her little secret hideout in her house, which is a room in the back of the house that actually connects to the other houses on their street. So all the houses are connected by like a little hallway in the back of all the houses. So like you can literally go through a door into this little hallway space, keep walking, and enter the other person's house if you wanted to. Diggory and Polly decide to measure by walking, not with a measuring tape or anything. They measure by walking the length of Polly's house, and they think that if they go the same exact distance from the end of Polly's house, they'll get past Diggory's house, and then any door they come to after that will take them into the 3rd house, which they believe is empty. So they do this, and they open what they believe is the right door, but they actually ended up in a fully furnished study. When they enter the study, Polly notices 2 sets of 2 rings, each set having a green and a yellow ring on like a table or a desk, and she walks up to admire them. And as she's admiring them, a chair that had been turned away from them turns to face them, and there sits Uncle Andrew. Uncle Andrew begins talking to her, really laying the charm on thick. And it's like, oh, look how beautiful these rings are. Would you like one? You're such a sweet girl. Like, I'll give you one. He says, I can't give you a green one, but I can give you a yellow one if you want it. Just reach out and grab it. And she does. And she vanishes out of thin air. Diggory is very surprised by this, as you can imagine. Uncle Andrew explains basically what's happened. I'm not going to go into all of the details, but basically Uncle Andrew has inherited this magical substance that is supposedly from another world, and he created the rings out of the substance. And supposedly when you touch a yellow ring, it transports you into this other world, but if you just touch a green ring, it's supposed to bring you back home. He's tried the yellow rings before by sending hedgehogs, but since hedgehogs don't really have like consciousness like humans do, he couldn't test the theory of whether the green rings will bring you back, and he needed human subjects for that. So instead of like asking, he tricked Polly into taking one of the yellow rings. And now he's trying to convince Diggory to go in after her and try to bring her back, because he purposefully did not give her a green ring. And Diggory's like, well, why don't you do it? You're the magician, like, you go. And he probably makes up some excuse. I don't really know. But then he goes after Diggory and he's like, oh, well, you know, there's no telling what's in this other world. And your friend Polly, she could be in real danger right now. And, you know, you're just not going to go save your friend in possible danger and distress. And, you know, that's okay, but you should probably walk over to Polly's house and explain to her parents, well, they'll never see their precious little girl again. And, you know, I'm really upset by this, because I thought the men in our family were raised to have more courage than this. Makes me so mad. And Diggory just looks at him, and Diggory gives him a strong word. And applause to Diggory. I am not for disrespecting your elders, but I really did love Diggory's response to his uncle. And he's like, okay, I'm going to do it, but not for you. It's for Polly. So Diggory grabs the 2 green rings, one for him, one for Polly, and then touches the remaining yellow ring, and he vanishes as well. Now he finds himself coming up out of a puddle of water into a little wood. So it's a wood filled with trees, and then every so often are little pools of water, which is what is in this cover. Not this exact scene yet, but that's what's on this cover. And he sees a girl about his age lying in the grass, and they greet each other, but they don't recognize each other at first. This little wood has a very interesting effect to where when you're there, you kind of feel like you've always been there and you don't know anything about your past life. So he starts talking to this girl, and they're putting things together, and then they see a hedgehog with a yellow ring taped to its back, and then it all comes back to them. They discuss what happened, and they decide to go back to the pool to go home. And they're about to jump in when they think to themselves, oh, well, if this pool takes us home, like, I wonder where will the other pools take us? And they decide to try it out. But before they do, they are going to jump into the homeward pool to just make sure they can get back. They do that, and right as the study's coming into focus, they change their rings and then jump back out. They find themselves back in the wood, and they mark the homeward pool so they don't get confused when they come back out of this other pool possible world, and they just pick another pool at random and jump into it. They do find themselves in another world, but this world is kind of odd. It has a very deep red light, and they can't find out where this light is coming from. It doesn't look like sunlight. It doesn't look like electrical light from lamps. They don't know where it's coming from, but the whole world is just bathed in like a deep red hue. And they seem to have found themselves in the courtyard of an old castle. Like, it's in ruins. There's pieces of it that have collapsed, and it just looks abandoned. So they start exploring, and it's just the same thing over. There's courtyards and halls and rooms, and it's not, I mean, it's interesting, but not really. And they're about to leave when they come up to a door that looks very different than all the others. They enter this room, and set in, I guess, rows throughout the room are these thrones, and in each of the thrones are sitting people. I think at first they think that they're like living, breathing people, and as they sit there, they realize that they're statues, but they're so lifelike that they look like they could just come alive at any moment. And they're walking along these rows, and at first, the people look very nice and sweet, and all of the kind words that you can think to describe someone. But as they keep walking, the people get crueler looking, and then they go further, and the people look both cruel and unhappy until they get to the very last throne. And it is a very tall and, according to Degree, very beautiful woman, although Polly doesn't find anything particularly beautiful about her. And they're about to turn and go, I think, when one of them, I think Polly, sees a little, like a platform, I guess, with a bell and a hammer. And under the bell and hammer is a little inscription that says, here it is, "Make your choice, adventurous stranger, strike the bell and bide the danger, or wonder till it drives you mad what would have followed if you had." Now, Polly does not want to ring the bell, and Degree does. Polly tries to stop him, and Degree is stronger than her, and he, like, pins her down and rings the bell. The bell rings, and it gets, like, increasingly louder and louder and louder until it's shaking the whole castle and then just stops. But the castle is, like, starting to crumble around them from the sound of this bell. And they notice that the last figure, the very tall, beautiful woman, has stood up. She comes towards the children and asks which one of them rung the bell. Degree says it was him. And from that moment forward, she's not worried about Polly at all. Like, she just fully ignores her. So the woman tells them, "Come on, we gotta get out of here," and they follow her. We learn that her name is Jadis, and she was the last queen of this place called Charn. She kind of tells a backstory. Basically, she was the last queen, and her sister was also queen over another kingdom, and they both possessed magic, but Jadis had stronger magic and had the magic of, I think she called it the deplorable word or something, I guess a word that she could utter and it would destroy the whole earth. And her sister both agreed to not fight each other and to not use magic. Well, they have a war, and Jadis' sister's army advances up to Jadis' castle, and Jadis uses the deplorable word and completely obliterates everyone in the entire world. But before she did that, she cast another spell that said when she spoke this word and everything was destroyed, that she would be set in the room with the previous kings and queens of Charn and set up the little bell and hammer so that someone could come and get her and bring her to another world. And she thinks that Diggory has been sent there by a magician of another world to bring her to their world so she could rule. So that's her understanding. And Diggory's like, "I'm sorry, what? We aren't trying to do that." And she's like, "Oh yeah, you gotta take me to your world and, like, I'm gonna rule." And Diggory's like, "Well, our world's not really like that. You can't really rule, like, no one person rules over the entire world." And she's like, "Oh, but I have magic and I'm beautiful, so, like, I'll have your world in no time." We do find out that the red light is coming from the sun. The sun is very big and very red, and which means it's a very old sun and it's dying. That just makes Jadis want to go to our world even more because it's newer and she can rule for longer, I guess. So Diggory and Polly are trying to find out a way how they can get back to our world without bringing Jadis, and they decide to like secretly count or something, and they both touch the rings in their pockets and disappear. As they touch the rings and they are seeing Charn melt away and seeing the warm light above them of the pool and the wood, they think they've gotten away when Polly feels yanking on her hair. She thinks it's Diggory. They get out of the pool, and it is not Diggory, it is the witch. Jadis has come with them by holding on to Polly's hair. So now we know that you don't have to have a ring yourself as long as you are touching someone with a ring. When the person touches the ring and they leave, you go with them. So they're in this wood, but Jadis seems to be disarmed, I guess you could say, by this wood. She seems, I think, paler and weaker, like she's doubled over, like she's in pain in this wood. And Diggory and Polly are like, okay, quick, let's get home, while she's sick and she can't grab onto us. So they run to the homeward pool, they go to jump in, touch their rings, and they are reappearing into Uncle Andrew's study when Diggory feels a hand grasp onto his arm, and Jadis has also followed them into our world. I'm not going to talk a lot about what happens in our world. I think it's a very funny chapter, but I don't really want to go into the specifics because it's not that important. It's just a fun chapter to read, in my opinion. But when Jadis meets Uncle Andrew, she starts bossing him around. She tells him to go get whatever means of transportation that royalty in our world use, and she basically wants to go all around the city and like boss people around, I guess, and become the queen of our world. I don't know what she's thinking. So Uncle Andrew goes, and she waits there for a while. She's like, oh, what's taking him so long? And she finally just leaves. Polly has to go home for dinner, and Diggory's like, okay, but please come back. Come back, please help. So Polly leaves, and some funny things happen, but we will fast forward to later that evening after dinner time. Diggory is out on his like front step or whatever, and there's a huge commotion in front of his house, and there's this huge scene of Jadis not in a cab, but like standing on the roof of a cab. The horse it's horse-drawn at this point. So a horse-drawn cab. She's standing on the roof of like the carriage part. The horse is going crazy. The cabbieman is trying to calm the horse. There's like 3 policemen and Lord knows how many business people saying, she stole from me, get her, put her in jail, lock her up. And it's Uncle Andrew comes out of the cab and he is disheveled to the greatest extent. Like it's a crazy scene. And Jadis pulls an iron bar off of a lamppost and is like beating people in the head with it. Like it's a crazy scene. It's so funny to read. So she's like standing on top of the cab beating people in the head with an iron bar, and Polly walks over and Diggory's like, I gotta get her out of here. So Diggory goes up to her. She jumps on the cabbieman's horse. Diggory is trying to grab onto any part of the witch that he can. I think he's trying to grab onto her heel. And he tells Polly to hold on to him, and whenever he gives the word, she switches rings because she can like focus on that while Diggory's focused on trying to grab hold of Jadis. So he eventually gets hold of Jadis, and Polly touches the ring, and they disappear into the other world. But they're not alone. It is not just Diggory, Polly, and Jadis. Oh no, we have an accompaniment. So we have Diggory, Polly, Jadis, the cabbieman's horse, whose name is Strawberry, that she was on, the cabbieman who was touching the horse, and Uncle Andrew, who was somehow thrown in. I don't know who he had hold of. So they're all in the wood between the worlds, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And Polly and Diggory, they're trying to figure out what to do. And Strawberry reaches down to drink from one of the pools, and everyone's still kind of holding on to everyone at this point. Like, I think Jadis may still be on the horse or touching the horse. And one of the children discreetly touches the rings and they vanish into this pool's world, because I think they want to like deposit Jadis into some world and then leave her. They come to in a world that is completely pitch black. There is nothing there. They're trying to figure out what's going on, and Jadis, she knows what's going on. She's like, oh, this is a new world. Like, there's nothing here yet. And so everyone's standing there talking, and they hear a sound, which is similar to music. I think it explains it in the book. I'm not going to try to do that. And as they're hearing this beautiful sound, well, beautiful to everyone but Uncle Andrew and Jadis, they see things start appearing. So they see light, and they see the sky with stars in it, and then grass underneath their feet. They see just different, like the fundamental things. Like I think they see water pop up, and soon they see the source of the music, which is a great big lion, and he is the source of this sound. And as he's singing, things are being created. C.S. Lewis writes it so beautifully, and I can't attempt to try to explain it to you. So I just would like for y'all to read the scene for yourselves, because I really love it. So all throughout this next little bit, I want you to know Jadis does not like what's going on. She doesn't like the look of the lion. She doesn't like the noise. She doesn't like anything. Uncle Andrew also doesn't like it. He's very scared of the lion and also does not really like what's going on. And also, Uncle Andrew and Jadis both are trying to sneak nearer to the children to, I guess, grab a hold of them so that they can go back to our world. So Diggory is trying to just leave Jadis, the cabbieman, and his horse in this new place and go home with the children. Jadis also trying to do the same thing. But Diggory and Polly are like, look here, we're the ones with the rings. If y'all get any closer to us, we'll just vanish and leave y'all here. So that holds everybody off for the most part. But as this lion is singing and creating these things, he's getting increasingly closer to the group. And at one point, he's like, I think he says like 10 yards away, maybe a little bit further. And Jadis, who still has the iron bar from the lamppost, throws it at the lion. It hits him square in the forehead. He doesn't even flinch. The iron bar just falls to the ground, embeds itself, and also starts growing. It eventually grows into a lamppost, which if you've read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, we know the famous lamppost. But after Jadis hits the lion with the iron bar and it doesn't move him whatsoever, she just scoots. She skedaddles. She's gone. She disappears somewhere. And the lion eventually turns and goes somewhere else, and he starts creating animals. All the animals we know of in our world: elephants, mice, dogs, cats, wolves, horses, anything we can think of. After that, he starts creating the mythical creatures. So the fawns, the centaurs, satyrs, the spirits of the waters and the trees, and anything you can think of, unicorns. He creates them. Now, after he creates those animals, he calls a group of the normal animals that we know of, that we have in our world. He calls a group of them to him and to a little area, and he sings to them, and the children see that the bigger animals become slightly smaller, the smaller animals become bigger, and some of them stand up on their hind feet, and their faces change to where it seems like they have like true understanding and like comprehension of what's going on. And Strawberry is one of these horses that are called into this circle. And this is the birth of the talking animals that we know of in Narnia. I think it's at this point, Uncle Andrew says something about the world being very youthful, and Diggory has the thought, oh, I wonder if that lion can help my mom. So Diggory, Polly, and the cabbiemen are walking towards the lion, and Uncle Andrew is trying to stay close to them, but also trying to stay far away from the lion, and eventually they get separated. Like, Uncle Andrew just stays in a little area to himself, scared half to death by everything he's seeing, as the children and the cabbiemen go up to the lion. At this point, the lion has called some of the talking creatures as his little council for this new place called Narnia, and he calls them to yet another area, and this is where the children and the cabbiemen meet up with him, and he is telling them about this evil which is in Narnia, even from its creation, and tells them how to ward off that evil, at least for the time being. And as the children walk up, the lion is like, this is the dude that brought the evil to your world. The lion, whose name is Aslan, I don't know when we learn his name, but this lion's name is Aslan, the creator of Narnia. Also to note, Narnia is not the name of the whole world, at least to my knowledge. Narnia is a country within this new world. There are other countries we learn later. Arkenland is the only one that's mentioned in The Magician's Nephew, but there is mentioned a desert place later on, and that is Calormen. At least we can infer that is Calormen. But anyways, Aslan first talks to the cabbieman. He asks him how he likes the place, and he says, I love it. You know, I'm from the country. There just wasn't work for me, and I had to move to London, but really I love being in the country. And Aslan asked him if he'd like to live here. He said he would, but he has a wife in London, and he doesn't want to leave her. So Aslan calls the cabbieman's wife to Narnia, and they are deemed the first king and queen of Narnia. And Aslan tells them that their descendants will be the future kings and queens of Narnia, and also kings and queens over the allied countries like Arkenland in the future. And they're called King Frank and Queen Helen, I believe. After that, he turns to Diggory. This is when Diggory asks him if he can somehow heal his mother. And I forget exactly what Aslan says, but he doesn't exactly tell him no, but it's kind of like a I'm gonna let you down easy type of no. But Aslan does tell him that he needs him to do something to kind of help right the wrong that Diggory did by bringing this evil to this new world. The evil being Jadis, obviously. So Diggory says he will, and Aslan explains what he needs him to do, but I'm not going to explain it and then tell you what they do. I'm just going to tell you what they do. They follow his instructions to a T. Diggory's like, okay, I'll do it, sir, but I hope you don't need it anytime soon because it's going to take a while. And then Aslan turns to Strawberry the horse, which is now a talking horse, and asks him how he would like to be a flying horse. And Strawberry agrees. He becomes a flying horse, rename him to Fledge, I believe, and Diggory now has transportation on this journey. I think at this point, Queen Helen tells Aslan that Polly would like to go with him. Polly's allowed to go, and they set out on their journey. So they fly for the rest of that day until nighttime. They sit down by a river, and then they lay down to go to sleep. Although they think they hear noises afar off, but nothing ever comes forward, so they fall asleep. When they wake up, the children take turns bathing in the river. Fledge gets something to drink, and they head out. They fly a little ways longer, and they find themselves at their destination. And their destination happens to be a little private-looking garden on the top of a hill. When they get there, Diggory's the only one to go inside. It's a garden, but it's enclosed by walls and a gate. There's a little inscription. Let me find it. As he walks up, he sees its inscription, which says, "Come in by the gold gates, or not at all. Take of my fruit for others, or forbear. For those who steal, or those who climb my wall, shall find their heart's desire and find despair." So Diggory's like, well, who would want to climb the wall? There's a perfectly good gate right here. But as he walks up to the gate, it just opens right up for him. He finds the tree that Aslan told him about to pick from, and the apples, I think they're either like golden or silver looking or something. There's something special about them. And Diggory grabs one, shoves it in his pocket, and he's about to turn to go when he considers taking one for his mother too. But I think he decides against it and turns to go. And as he turns to go, the witch steps out And when Diggory sees her, he yells to Polly to get on Fledge, and he's running, but she stops him and starts talking to him. And she's being very manipulative or beguiling. She's being very beguiling. She has just eaten one of these fruits, and Diggory sees the truth of the inscription because he mentions how she looks very pale, like Snow White type of pale. And she's talking to him, telling him how good the apple is and how she feels so much stronger already. And she's saying, you could take one to your mom. You could just leave here. Aslan wouldn't have to know. You could just take it to her and she'd get all better. And he's kind of falling for it. But the one mistake that she makes is she suggests that he just take her hand, put on one of the rings, and they go to his world together. And that's when he kind of snaps out of it and realizes it's all just a trick for her to get back to our world. So he turns, runs, jumps on Fledge, and they scoop. They get out of there. They head back towards Narnia. They get to Narnia that day. They find Aslan, and Aslan tells Diggory to throw the apple by the river. He does, and then Aslan goes to deal with another situation. Basically, when the children and the cabbiemen left Uncle Andrew to go talk to Aslan, some of the talking creatures come up to Uncle Andrew and were trying to figure out what he was. But Uncle Andrew has convinced himself that these animals aren't speaking. At first, he thought he heard the lion talking, but he convinced himself that he was just going crazy. So now all he hears is roaring. And as a result, also only hears the noises, the typical animal noises coming from these talking animals. So he's not responding to them. And they're like, oh, well, is he a tree? Is he an animal? What is he? And they're trying to decide if they need to feed him, if they need to plant him. At one point, one of the animals plant him. Then they're like, oh, well, maybe he's not. Maybe he's actually human, because, that thing right there kind of looks like a face. Like you can kind of see where it looks like a face. So then all the animals start bringing him different types of food. The squirrels bring him nuts. The bears bring him honey, which is just a hive that is still filled with bees. They're just bringing all sorts of things. So at the end of the day, Uncle Andrew is dirty and muddy because they tried to water him as well, and covered in acorns and honey, and he's a mess. And he's like in a daze at this point. He's terrified out of his mind. And Aslan walks up to him, pulls him out of the ground, I think, and puts him in a deep, peaceful sleep. And he does mention to Diggory that Uncle Andrew has done it to himself, in that he's convinced himself that Aslan isn't real. He's just a typical lion, and the talking creatures are also typical creatures. And that Uncle Andrew has chosen not to believe, which you can kind of see the resemblance there in real life and having faith in God. But I do believe I discussed that with Grace Lee. So at the end of all these plot videos, y'all will see the conversation I had with Grace Lee and Cassidy, and we'll go over that then. Anyways, after that, Aslan then brings the entourage over to the river where there's an apple tree that has grown. And at this point, Aslan takes one of the apples down and gives it to Diggory and tells him to give it to his mother. He does tell Diggory that although the apple won't hold the same properties in our world that it does in Narnia, it will still make her better. And Aslan gives him instructions on what to do with the rings. And yeah, after that, I believe that's everything that happens. They do have the coronation for King Frank and Queen Helen. Then Diggory and Polly, they go back home. Diggory gives his mother the apple, and she already starts feeling better. She wants him to open up the curtains, although she doesn't get out of bed or anything crazy. The next day, Polly comes over, brings the rings, and they bury them in the backyard of, Uncle Andrew's house, along with the apple core that Diggory had buried the other day. It mentions that within a month, Diggory's mother is almost 100% better, and they get a letter from Diggory's father saying that someone some cousin or someone died, and he left his whole fortune to Diggory's father. So they're now rich, and they have a big house in the country, and Diggory's father leaves his job, and they live happily ever after in this countryside home. Diggory grows up to be a well-known professor, and he lives in this house. And one day, a really big storm come through London and knocked down the apple tree. And he didn't want the wood to just be turned into like firewood. So he went and got the tree, got it made into a wardrobe, and put it in his house. And it does say that although Diggory himself did not discover the magical properties of the wardrobe, someone else did. But that is another story for another time. I completely forgot to film this earlier, so I'm just going to go through it. I'm going to talk about the connections between the Bible and what C.S. Lewis wrote. C.S. Lewis took inspiration from the Bible when writing this series, and obviously The Magician's Nephew is Narnia's version of the creation story in Genesis in our Bible. And I really love the fact that Jadis is brought to this world, and from its inception, there's evil in this world. And similar to Satan in the garden, he appears as a snake in the garden, and Jadis is evil and is the evil in the beginning, in the creation of this world of Narnia. Now, I haven't fully thought this out, but there is a garden in here that Diggory goes to that is obviously very reminiscent of Satan as the snake talking to Eve in the garden, but obviously also slightly different because Diggory and Polly are not just in the garden. They're here at the creation of the whole world. But there's still some ties there to the creation story in Genesis. That's really the biggest one. I can't right now think of any other ones. I enjoyed the story. It's very interesting. I like how he took creative liberties with the story, though. I think I saw what was supposedly a quote by C.S. Lewis that when writing the Chronicles of Narnia, he posed the question to himself of if there was another world with mythical creatures, with talking animals, how would God present himself? And in our world, in real life, God clothed himself in flesh and come to earth, lived as a human, and died for our sins. In Narnia, he's Aslan, he's a lion. And I'm not going to pretend I'm the greatest theologian of, what I believe. I'm scared I'm going to explain it in such a way that it's confusing. So forgive me. And if I do realize that I messed something up, I will come back and in the description or in the comments fix what I said. But I like how he took creative liberties with the story. Instead of Polly and Diggory going to a garden within this world, they see the whole world and actually go to the garden to get the apple for Aslan. And I just think it's very interesting. I feel bad saying, I know possibly in the reviews, but also in the later plot videos, I'm gonna compare Aslan to God, to Jesus, and I feel bad doing that. But at the same time, the way that the story's set up, it's kind of what if there are other worlds? This other world with mythical creatures, with talking animals, how would God present himself in this world? And Aslan and Narnia has talking animals, so it makes sense that maybe God would come down as a lion named Aslan instead of as Jesus. So, I think that is very interesting, and I love how he did that, I guess. This is a question, though, that I don't know the answer to. I'm apostolic. I'm very upfront about that. And there are debates within Christianity of the Trinity and the oneness of God, whether Jesus was God clothed in flesh, or whether there are three entities in heaven, God, Jesus, and the Holy Ghost maybe is the Trinity's third one. I really don't know. I believe the oneness of God. I believe that God clothed himself in flesh and come down to earth. But with the Chronicles of Narnia, seeing what's happening in them, I honestly don't know what C.S. Lewis believed. I know he was Anglican. I think that's how you say it. I don't know what he believed. I don't know if he believed oneness. I don't know if he believed Trinity. I don't know. So there have been some questions that me and Gracely, we even discussed, at least one of them that I can remember. There are some things in this series that may rival what I believe, and honestly that's probably just because his denomination, whatever it was that he believed, may believe a little bit different than we did. So I'm wondering if Aslan being God, but also in the next book, spoiler alert, Aslan dies for Edmund. I wonder if Aslan being God, being the creator in this book, but also being the one to die for Edmund, it can be confusing if you believe oneness, which I believe it. Okay. So it kind of makes me think that C.S. Lewis did believe in the Trinity, because either in The Magician's Nephew or in the next one, they mentioned the Emperor over the Sea, which is like Aslan's father. So now that I'm thinking about it more and more, I think C.S. Lewis may have believed in the Trinity. So there is that little discrepancy between what I believe, what C.S. Lewis believed, but I still very much love the series. And it's still a very good Christian series and good for kids. But sorry to have gone into that in The Magician's Nephew when The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is next. But other than that, I still love the series, and I love the creative liberties he took with the series. Anyways, I believe that is it. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to see y'all in the next one. Bye.